Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TechRaptor podcast. I'm Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
Andrew Otton, editor-in-chief.
Rutledge Doggett, site founder.
Andrew Stritch, your Googleizer editor.
Googleizer editor. Is that like the machine Google feeds are dead?
Have you not seen
Zoolander?
Have you not seen Zoolander?
Oh.
But see, it's funny because it's a mispronunciation of eulogy, but also Google Stadia is dead, so it's a Ugoogly.
Oh, I see. We're connecting all the dots because this week Stadia is dead. On our 69th episode. Nice.
Nice.
Stadia.
Dicks out.
You can't.
Come on, you don't remember that?
Dicks out for Stadia, man.
You can't see our pants. You can't see our lower halves.
That's the image we want to leave.
COVID Zoom calls all over again.
I'm so fucking sorry.
This is such a party.
Oh man,
Are we 15 seconds in? Because that's gonna make YouTube mad.
Hey, you know the intro song is like 11 seconds, so
We're good. We're good.
We made it.
Yeah, Stadia is now officially dead. I think in honor of its legacy, we should probably have a little moment of silence. So we want you, the listener, to join us as well. Whatever you're doing, let's just take some time to respect the legacy of Stadia, starting now. And that's all the time we have for that moment of silence.
Truly, just a moment.
True. It was
about the same as the lifespan of Stadia. So
yeah, maybe a little longer. Let's be
it
generous.
was around for a few years. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, and Stadia kind of, I think, opened the door-ish, like to the public perception of cloud gaming, right? I think
Certainly started a big conversation.
Yeah. And now Xbox is carrying that torch.
Yeah, Xbox will actually make a product.
Shaking its fists from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
Remember, hey, you know that Amazon's got Luna? Me neither.
Anyway. Oh yeah, Luna. It's being carried by Ubisoft, basically.
Yeah.
they don't have Smile either.
Which
So
Ubisoft may not exist in a few years.
Yeah, maybe depending on how things go for them, right?
Maybe that's what Assassin's Creed Infinite is. It's just what they're gonna rebrand Luna to.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be like it was gonna be like a Deadpool thing where you're hunting down the Ubisoft executives and assassinating them.
I think the craziest thing from their all hands meeting, like last week or whatever, where he was like, "I'm sorry that I said the ball's in your court," was the whole, "Can we start creating trends instead of chasing them?" And I was like, he stood there and he was like, I don't have a response to this.
Well, they created one trend
brutal.
and then they've been riding it for like 15 years.
Yeah. And they're going back to their roots by riding the original trend that they were riding in the first place. So it's a lot of original creativity over there coming out of Ubisoft right now. See, I thought when you initially said Assassin's Creed Infinite, I thought you were kind of going toward like, well, last time we saw a game with the name Infinite on it, it also performed very, very well. Halo Infinite is doing incredibly well, and 343 is.
I hear they're making more Halos.
We'll get into that.
We should get into that.
We'll get into that in today's episode. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Last of Us TV show. So toward the end of the episode, we will probably have spoilers on for that, just as a heads up for just the first episode. I think by the time this episode of the podcast comes out,
spoil for 10-year-old game.
Yeah, for a 10-year-old game, right? But I mean, if you haven't seen the show and haven't played the game, and still want to, we're giving you the fair warning now. We will make it clear later in the episode when the spoilers will begin. But otherwise, let's get into some news. The Wizards of the Coast walked back some of their OGL stuff from last week, and now they've released OGL 1.2, or a draft of it.
So the draft is not final.
Yes, yeah. And if you look at the PDF, there's a big watermark on every page that says DRAFT. They want to be very clear. This is a draft.
Oh, is that how that's spelled?
Sometimes. It depends where you're from. And it's all for feedback. They're going to have a survey running where people can submit their feedback to it. And I think, Stretch, you have you've gone into that OGL and you wrote up a piece on our site, which will be linked in the show notes below. But do you want to walk us through some of the big highlights of this draft?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it isn't exactly new. In fact, it's a whole lot of them doing exactly what I was saying last week on the podcast. That like they've now talked a big talk about what they're going to change and what they're going to do differently. and now we're seeing that they're walking the walk. The base rule or the base mechanics of D&D, they have put into the Creative Commons, which is huge. That's like, you know, people who had a fear of them changing the rules on them or them changing something on them. It's immediately like, nope, they literally cannot. That doesn't belong to them anymore. They put in a clause that the only portions of the contract of the OGL 1.2 that they would be able to change going forward would be in how they communicate with people who they think are breaching the OGL, and how people need to reference the OGL 1.2 to make sure that it's valid inside whatever content they create. Some of the stuff in there, like, this is totally a license that you will have access to, and this will be, you know, in perpetuity, unrevocable. And it's like, well, there was also that wording on the last one that you've now rescinded. There are those lines in there specific to the ability to, like, retract the license from people who make content that is deemed to be racist, bigoted, offensive. There is, you know, some people are looking at their verbiage, you know, that they can determine what is racist or bigoted. And, you know, some people are looking at that, you know, wondering how heavy the hand will be that determines what is that. But really, I just reckon that this is Wizards of the Coast putting a clause in so that they don't have to sue another company for making horrendously racist content like TSR did earlier with one of their playtest betas. We have an article linked to that in that piece as well.
It was used in the lawsuit.
Yeah, that piece that I have linked to is actually used in said lawsuit as an example. So that's really cool. But
yeah, we're in a court of law.
Yeah,
That's right.
But it's for the most part, it looks good. They still don't have any of the royalty stuff. You know, I'm still personally coin flip on that. I know that some people are very for it. Well, no one's very for it. Some people are very against it. But I can also understand that either way, at least. There's some weird stuff in there with regard to virtual tabletops that, like, yes, you can have the mechanics to Magic Missile. You can have something that lets you cast Magic Missile. You can have the other person take damage and that damage calculation be done automatically in the VTT, but you can't make it look like Magic Missile.
What if I make it green? Would that...
I don't think that Magic Missile specifies what color it is. Like in the description of the spell. So I don't even know how they would be able to argue what does and does not look like Magic Missile when it's a projectile that starts at point A and ends at point B that is magical in nature. But you know, that is a little bit weird, a little bit shady. My guess is that's because we know that they're coming out with their own VTT through D&D Beyond. So of course, you know, this might be a way for them to be able to be like, well, VTT is everywhere, but if you want to play like the really flashy VTT with all of the effects that are official effects, then you've got to come check out our system. I still see people rallying on Twitter and stuff that they shouldn't be, like, it's okay for them to make 1.2, but they shouldn't be allowed to deauthorize 1.0A. But they pretty clearly state in the post as well, it's like, well, if we don't deauthorize the old one, then those clauses that we have for people to not make racist or bigoted content isn't going to be something that we can push for, because those people who want to make racist, bigoted stuff will just use the 1.0A.
Right.
So they're very much stuck in a weird position in regards to that specifically, but they're making good strides.
They said though, right, that anything that has already been made in 1.0A will like remain as if it were, right? Like they're not going to retroactively apply 1.2 to older
Correct, yeah.
things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Where
not
it could
like
get weird is if people make it after the deauthorization and try and play off like, well, I made it before you guys deauthorized 1.2.
and they did have something in that specifically that like there was not in this most recent one, but in the last one there was like a 6-month grace period for like stuff that projects that you had already started publishing under 1.0a that you would have like 6 months to get it out, and then even then it was like, hey, if that's unfeasible because like stuff has just gone to print and will be printing and shipping for the next 6 months, here's an email that you can contact us with, and just like let us know the details.
That's good, at least.
They are like looking at their big, at all of the third party. I'm not going to say they're big because none of it is theirs, as they have outlined in their contract. It's still definitely not an open license. They're keeping the name Open Gaming License, but it is a licensing agreement. But we'll see. Literally, like as of recording this, they've just opened up the surveys for feedback. So I'm sure that will get absolutely bombarded with crap stuff. But as many current and ex-Wizards employees have been on Twitter this week saying, yes, they read the feedback, even the stuff in the paragraphs.
Right. And there was like a little bit of that, because the reason they had to clarify, right? Because there was like some people tweeting, like it was like D&D Shorts or something.
D&D Shorts has been doing a lot of tweeting from internal sources that some has been true and some has not. Yeah.
And like some of that was partly down to the way that he has been protecting the identity of his source, has been through like running all of their conversations through like a paraphraser, which then I think has led to some murkier, if you replace every single word in a paragraph with a like word, it's not going to convey the same message.
Right.
So is that kind of like the One Piece Odyssey overview that I see scraped on another site right now of one of ours?
From ours?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
Similar software that just makes absolute gibberish out of scraping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand why they're doing it, just in terms of, it's the same idea as like if you're using an audio clip, you muffle the voice or you go through like a voice changer, so that way you can track like phrases that a person uses. But I think the point you make, where the more words you change with synonyms, the further away you get from the original meaning.
Yeah. And I know that like Did You Know Gaming just kind of came out about this as well with all of their videos and their content, when they're like, oh, from our anonymous source, and they read out the quote. I saw that there were a couple of people being like, well, why doesn't the person giving the quote read it? And it's like, well, protecting their identity, sometimes what you say isn't quite how you want to form the sentence around it. It's the same reason that any journalist, like after going through an interview with someone, they will then, share what that is to see if they want to maybe slightly change some of their quotes. Because even in the way you talk, you say, there are break words like everything.
Yeah.
I get the idea of making something more succinct, but the entire tabletop community has been pulling big gamer moves of picking up the pitchforks before they really let anything concrete come out.
Because I do sense kind of like a huge about face from Wizards in terms of their like tone and approach to this. Because initially, right, what initially caused all the backlash was them kind of being like, hey, here's the new licensing agreement, fuck you, sign it by Friday, no negotiate, like this is it, do it now or else, right? And then they kind of backed away and then ended in that more like, you may think we lost, but we won too, just like you. And now they're in full, now they're in kind of full like, okay, let's have a discussion about it, let's do feedback and surveys and all. So
and it's been a bit of a pattern too, so there's also a lot of mistrust that's built up in terms of their behavior over the last couple of years.
If they had it would have just been such a different situation if they had come forward with the 1.1 and said, hey, we're going to be taking feedback on this, here is what we're thinking. Just there would be so many less headaches over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I
been
think
wild
they
to watch.
definitely wanted to get people locked into an agreement prior to, because it's about money.
Mhm.
So they didn't want that feedback. They wanted people
money.
to sign a thing and then we'll deal with the fallout later, potentially. But it got out before all that could happen.
Right.
That's the feeling I got from it. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
I'm just too cynical because it's a $1 billion company, Hasbro, and they are always going to do shady shit
No,
because they're a $1 billion company.
The backpedaling has been intense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. It's almost like we won and they lost, to use some of their,
No.
some of their
Pretty sure they
language.
won.
Yeah. We're all winners here.
Oh,
course.
Everybody gets a participation trophy.
Yeah. Which, for the record, I hate that language. I don't think it should have been. It definitely shouldn't have been used in the wizard statement.
It is such a
but
strange thing to say.
I also don't like it to be used from like the fan community perspective because I just don't. It shouldn't be a us versus them mentality.
I'm gonna start putting that in our blog posts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That
you
we
may
were
think we
winners.
lost, but we won. Just like you.
Hey, come on. When
internal
has TechRaptor
communiques.
ever lost?
True. We've just been batting 1,000 this whole time.
Yeah.
Doing a great job. Zero misses in our 10 years. Well, almost 10 years.
Yeah, just like Sony. Sony has never missed as well. Just like their upcoming PSVR 2, which is going to come out on February 22nd, about a month away from the time this podcast is dropping on your feed. And over last week, Sony has revealed 13 additional games they're adding to their launch window lineup. It should be clear that this isn't like all of these games are not necessarily dropping on February 22nd, just the launch window, whatever that means to Sony. You can expect 37 games within a month of February, right? Or February 22nd. Some of the new games they announced are, some of them are older, like they're not all brand new. But, you're looking at like Pavlov VR, Puzzling Places, Song and Smoke, Res Infinite, Synth Riders, What the
You
Bat.
got Beat Saber?
What's that? What's Beat Saber?
Beat Saber, it's like one of the most popular VR games. We're getting that at launch, right?
Is that like a DDR clone? What the fuck is that?
No, it's
I think
like Lightsaber.
that's Synth Riders is the kind of DDR-ish clone.
I thought
Yeah.
Beat Saber was that porn game we talked about.
Huh? Which one?
I don't know.
Oh, whatever weird thing Otton found one week, like literally the week after I got my index.
Oh, I don't remember the name of that.
Oh,
I
that's
can't
right.
remember either.
I think it was
Yeah.
simply just porn VR, to be honest.
Porn VR. Yeah.
Hey, if you have a market, sell to it.
Shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
hate-
there.
I bet it's easy to find too. Like if you're looking for it, you know what you're looking for, right?
Also, that
pretty
industry tends to lead technology. So
All
But
your cool YouTube features, you can thank porn for.
Where can I find Bob's VR?
but Beat Saber is allegedly on the way. I think earlier this
They
month
announced
in
it,
January.
yeah, just no
Yeah,
date.
They said like keep an eye out, watch the space. We're
Yeah.
coming to the PSVR 2, but who knows when?
What a fucking miss to not have that at launch.
Right? That's how I feel about it because that's like the VR game.
I'd also really love. Do we know like how many of these are free upgrades and how many of these are
I don't think
you
any
might
are
have
free
bought
upgrades.
it once but buy it again, sucker?
Buddy,
This
this
is
is
Sony.
this is Sony. This is play
Yeah.
has no limits except please buy our upgrades. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I really want to believe that
nah.
that there is some stuff in there that is like, yeah, if you owned it, then you can play it.
No. I
Yeah,
don't think
no.
any of it's that way.
well, there is one.
I could
that
imagine
is-
Alchemy Labs doing it with Job Simulator. I could definitely imagine them doing
Yeah.
it with the Job
Maybe.
Simulator stuff.
I know Gran Turismo 7. That's going to be a free
Oh,
update.
it's a free update. That's right.
Yeah, you have to already
Yeah.
own GT7, but
Yeah.
then it
Yeah,
gets
and
a
like
free
that's going
VR
to be the
mode
same
update.
with No Man's Sky, right? Or is No Man's Sky VR a standalone purchase?
I think it's a stand.
I don't know.
Or oh yeah, that's a good question because I think in other spaces it's VR like just added on, right? Like if you buy it on Steam.
Yeah, I think it's just like a VR mode within the game.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that there's quite a few. I mean, a decent amount of games listed here, but there's not any of them that are like, I must have this thing. There's not
Yeah.
a killer app yet. Still, the only
Yeah.
killer app really in VR, like if for like a big game, is Half-Life Alyx, and
That's not
That's
here.
not on this.
And Beat Saber.
And Beats, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just like a big budget like gamey game.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth noting that there are some more of these that are actually free upgrades. They're not all. You have to buy them for PSVR 2. It looks like Puzzling Places is a free upgrade. Pistol Whip, Resident Evil 7 is a free upgrade specifically, or Village, not 7. Resident Evil Village is a free upgrade to the PS5 version of RE Village. So if you already have the PS5 version, you will get the VR upgrade for it.
Okay, and that's hopefully if those things are at launch. That's a pretty good library of things to check out day one.
Yeah,
and Horizon game.
Yeah, that's going to be. I think that's what Sony's hoping is their killer app. Like that's their, you know.
Too bad Horizon keeps getting coming out when like Zelda and Elden Ring come out.
Yeah,
because forgotten
when it comes out, isn't like Wo Long the next week? I don't know if Wo Long's going to be like.
I don't know if I'll worry about that. Well, in VR's it's such a different beast. It has its own it doesn't really cross over into general gaming a lot of times.
Hey man, Breath of the Wild's VR mode was great. I don't know what you're
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We have joked a lot about
is that Nintendo's next move. They always do weird shit with consoles, and people are talking about the Switch lately. Are we gonna get like a new Virtual Boy?
Maybe.
Well, no, there was a VR mode in Breath of the Wild.
The it's the Labo thing, right? Where you slot the fucking Switch into those big glasses in front of you.
Yeah.
And you would look around.
It had a VR mode. It's all good.
Yeah, very, very sketchy one. But we have joked about the Index 2 coming. And what if that's like March 1st, they announce Index 2 coming soon.
I hope
or
so.
like Vive Pro 2, the next big blockbuster ultra powerful VR machine, right? I think my favorite name on this list, I know absolutely nothing about this game, but it's just a funny name. NFL Pro Era. I don't know why that just tickles a certain place in my heart, but it just sounds so funny to imagine an NFL game in VR.
It would be there was a video a couple of years ago of somebody playing a similar like football game, and the controller slipped out and they threw it straight through their TV. And that's all I can think of when I think of an NFL VR game.
Oh, I can't wait. Because like
you're terrifying.
You're either the coach or you're simulating concussions.
NFL Pro Era is the first fully licensed NFL virtual reality simulation game that lets players experience what it's like to compete as the quarterback on their favorite NFL team. Utilizing real-time NFL game data, NFL Pro Era is one of the most authentic and immersive first-person VR football games to come to the market. But it's an Oculus Quest game that has a 6.5 out of 10 on the VR grid.
It's got you can throw to your cousin.
Mostly, dude. A decently made VR game where you're playing a quarterback at NFL would be fucking cool as hell.
That does sound kind of neat. But I'm wondering about that live. Like it says, it's getting data in real time. Like, what are you supposed to play a game that's happening as it's?
No, they probably just mean they're updating rosters and shit with stat.
Yeah,
it's probably
just the same way that like any of like the pro what is it? FUT, like the Foot League mode of FIFA. Sorry, of
Ultimate Team,
EA Football Club,
the EA Football Foot Club.
No, I'd be down to try out that NFL game though.
Yeah. That could be neat. Probably the other big one coming this is one of the ones announced as part of this push was Tetris Effect and also Thumper to an extent, but Tetris Effect's pretty big. I mean, in VR, it's still Tetris. It's not like you're not holding the Tetraminos or anything, but it's a really immersive experience.
Have they got a new vibrating controller to sit under for res?
Say that one more time.
What did you just say?
Have they got a new vibrating controller for you to sit on for res?
Sit on for your butt?
Do you guys not know about this as well?
I don't know what's happening, but
is it called a vibrator? Is it?
I forgot what it's called. Res.
The things I'm trying not to say right now.
All right, no, it was called the trance vibrator.
That doesn't make it any better.
You guys don't know about this?
No.
This was an add-on that came with the PS2 version of Res, the first one, that you would plug it into the USB port on your PS2, and it was like a vibrating thing that I'm gonna post it in the chat.
So you put it on your
It
butt?
was a vibrating thing that would vibrate in time with the music, and you were meant to
I
sit
remember
on
this
it.
thing.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember that now.
That's not what it was used for, guaranteed.
Well, you don't know that, right?
Yeah, get your mind out of the gutter, you sick fuck. God.
When Otton's telling you that, you know something's wrong.
Says the man that used Rule 34 as empirical data in a Mario debate about Mario.
Nobody else had hard data in that thing.
It's just the facts. That's just
the
fact.
facts here.
Wish I
But
just had hard data.
That's. I thought I was speaking with true gamers. You guys don't even know about the officially licensed res vibrator.
Is that in your bag of
Your
consoles?
bag?
No, it's not in my bag of consoles.
No, he
I only put stuff in my bag of consoles that I don't use.
Well, that's the difference. He still uses it now.
Well, no,
It
it
wouldn't go in the-
doesn't
it doesn't
work
go in the
anymore.
bag yet.
He's used it so much he wore it out.
Right. Well, he's just a big fan of the beats.
Kill me.
Oh boy.
God, I feel like this whole pod so far has been very dirty.
Very dirty.
Into the new year.
Anyway, I mean that's like one of the peak things people hope for VR, right? Come on.
Dirty?
That was one of the busiest booths at 1E3 I went to. Some porn VR thing.
Yeah,
couldn't
Wow.
get
Doesn't
around it.
surprise me.
Yeah.
It's like, what, why did we end up with Blu-rays in all of our consoles and not
Yes.
HD DVDs? Why do we have VHS and not Betamax?
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's because Sony fumbled the bag on that. That's a big
That's
story.
true.
But
I mean, hey, I feel like so far the tone of this episode has been pretty on point for episode 69.
oh, that's right.
That's true.
That is
Nice.
fair.
But
That is
Anyway,
fair.
should I buy PSVR 2? Should Rut buy
Sure,
me
why not?
PSVR 2?
if you want, or hey, if you want to drive 6 hours, you can try mine when it gets in here.
It's more like 7 hours.
Even better.
No.
Well, see, you drive 7 hours to then come here and then fake drive in Gran Turismo 7.
Just bring it
There you
with you
go.
to E3.
Yeah,
Problem solved.
Yeah.
could, I guess. I don't know if I'd want to pack that in my bag.
Yeah, fly with it. Nah.
Yeah, and I
Use
don't
it
know
on the
what
plane.
what
Yeah, just
fucking
wear
time
the headset
we
on the
have.
plane. I gotta protect it.
Wonder if that would work well for people who don't enjoy flying.
I've seen plenty of photos spread around and stuff of people being like, yeah, I just, instead of dealing with like being on a plane, even to like watch your own movies and stuff, but to have the headphones and the visor come down and be in a theater environment.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that would be a good use for it. I could not imagine playing a game in VR on a plane because you do imagine
You're
being the
sitting
person next to the
whack-
motherfucker.
whacking 'em.
Right? Yeah, you're just punching and swinging his arms while
trying to throw a touchdown pass, and you
Yeah.
smack the dude
Someone
in front of you
playing
in the head.
Creed in the
You're just beating the shit out of the seat in front of you.
Yeah,
Screw
imagine
the
being the
kid
seat in
behind
front.
you kicking the seat. You're just punching the person in front of you.
It's the adult, the
Kid
VR.
behind
That's
me?
the problem.
Asshole playing
Oh,
VR
man,
on the
you'd
plane.
get so sweaty, and that'd just be gross to sit in.
Hmm
Next person who comes into the plane, it's just like a pool.
It's very damp.
Like,
No,
No, man, that's
this
the
is very
kayak
warm.
game I've been playing. That's the kayak game. It's just really wet.
Yeah, it's very immersive.
is this with the trans vibrator or not?
You can
Always.
bring it. You can bring it. Yeah. Well, let's pivot to our last story of the day here. This one's not so nice news. It's kind of been a big trend in tech over the past week or so. There have been a lot of layoffs.
It is
You
on the
probably-
theme though.
Is
That's
it?
How? Yeah, people got fucked. Got to keep the 69 theme.
No, just no.
Oh my
Well,
god.
but 69 is like a mutual fucking. This is a pretty one
True.
way.
True.
Pretty one way.
They didn't ask for this.
This podcast is not for kids. I'm sorry, YouTube. Oh, I'm gonna literally have to mark it as like
He's
I
got
don't even
Evie
know.
behind him.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
Giddy.
Do I?
No,
but
Stretch
Stretch
does.
So in part of the round of layoffs, there's been big ones like Amazon, Google actually just announced today on Friday, which is when we're recording this podcast, or like early
Right.
this morning Friday, that Google will Alphabet parent company is also doing layoffs. Microsoft is as well, and part of where it intersects with gaming here is that Xbox gaming employees are being impacted. Oh. It activated my Google. My Google at home is listening to me right now. It is. This is amazing. Hey Google, stop.
Stadia, is that you? Are you dying? Is that you from beyond the veil?
Yeah, Stadia is trying to claw its way back into the world through the Nest, right? But Microsoft is also being affected by these layoffs. I think actually Austin, one of our writers, he interviewed someone at World's Edge who works with the Age of Empires people, and that person also got laid off, which is kind of crazy to, we're like 2 degrees
on the team.
Yeah, it was like narrative focused. So that's like kind of 2 degrees from us that's been
people
affected.
At Bethesda were affected as well. A couple other ZeniMax properties. It's been brutal. And I mean, like,
a lot of Halo people, yeah.
Vox Media announced 7% layoffs today. There was one other, Wayfair. They're more of a retailer.
Yeah, I mean, in our space, like along with like Vox's, journalism in general, but like in gaming journalism, GameSpot and Giant Bomb, right? Like Fandom just announced some cuts there too. So it's starting to get into layoff season in general, which is kind of a scary time for everyone.
There's definitely some market fear right now.
Yeah.
A lot of that.
Yeah, we're actually replacing Rob for the next podcast going forward, and he doesn't even know about it.
Oh wow! Are we replacing me with one of the other 2 Robs?
No, AI.
We're just gonna get AI.
ChatGPT is gonna come in.
We're gonna feed all of your previous podcasts into a paraphrasing bot, and then we're gonna have your Google Nest read out your lines.
Honestly, hey, it sounds like a nice break, so I'll take it. I think some of the biggest stuff we're seeing, and it's kind of a developing story, is with 343, right? They got impacted pretty hard. I think it's kind of getting safer to say that we're probably not going to see much campaign stuff moving forward with Halo. And I think there was a story that came out today that they will
mostly rumors.
Is it rumors?
There is
not
a
official.
bunch of rumors about who is left, who isn't left, of that skeleton crew, whether they would be continuing to work on Halo or whether they would be taken off Halo as a franchise, which would be pretty ridiculous for 343 Industries, named after Guilty Spark, to not be making Halo games. But at the moment, it is all unsubstantiated rumors. So
there was another rumor too that with that shift to having an outside development team handle Halo, that they're going to work on their own first party IP too. So there's like a lot of stuff going around right now, which is,
if that's true, they could call it like Fate or maybe Destiny for their own solo IP.
Speaking of cool rumors, there were rumors earlier this week that that they were trying to get Scalebound going again.
Oh,
that's true too. Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm sure
it's been a really wild week of ups and downs, and it's just been crazy, like looking out into the void of the internet and seeing so much horrendous stuff happen.
Yeah, I feel like amid all of like the horrible layoff news, just rumors have been going crazy, just like rumors in general about everything. I feel like we're just seeing a lot more this week. It's kind of weird. Yeah,
it's hard to substantiate a lot of it too in the midst of all of these layoffs. Like it could be literally anybody.
I wonder why there's so many rumors. Almost like it's a downtime for news this year, and people have to generate some stories.
Oh, they're making
guys. I just heard a fat leak that Otton thinks that it's a slow time for games right now.
It's slow news past few weeks.
Pass it on.
Well, until Monday.
Yeah, now it starts. Today is really when it starts. Fire Emblem's out, and we're all fucked now for the next few weeks.
Fire Emblem, Forspoken, Dead Space next week.
And then February is just a mess. February is just a mess. Yeah, but I worry that this is maybe not the last of layoffs we're going to see at big studios. I mean, just last week we were talking, earlier in this pod, we were just talking about how Ubisoft is having some troubles. I'm not saying for sure that layoffs will happen, but if that gets announced, I don't think it would be surprising anyone.
Not
they made it pretty clear that anybody who's fired or leaves, they are not replacing for the foreseeable future. So wouldn't be surprised.
Clearly, Eves will take a pay cut to save some jobs, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how capitalism works.
He seems a nice guy. But yeah, I mean, just a trend we're seeing in tech in general, right? Like it just, I don't know if you wake up tomorrow and see, oh, this company is laying off like 1,000 people. I just don't think it'd be surprising right now, which is kind of scary, just for these people and their livelihoods, right?
Yeah. I mean, since the start of 2022, we've seen over 250,000 layoffs in tech. So,
yeah,
crazy.
It gets bloated, and now it's being pruned. Yeah. Well, we hope that the people who have been laid off and all of tech in general can land on their feet, find some new footing. And we'll just have to see how this Microsoft or the Xbox specific layoffs kind of affect things moving forward. Because I mean, if it has affected Bethesda in a big way, I mean, Starfield is allegedly in the next 5 months.
Supposedly, they claim this.
Allegedly. No, that's kind of the big thing.
To talk about Xbox as well, we also know that on the 25th we're going to get a big showcase for them as well. So
that's right.
It's kind of crazy that it's going from this to, okay, now we're going to go and show off a whole bunch of stuff. But if you're interested in checking out those announcements with us, I know that Christian and I will be live on YouTube. So, on the 25th in the afternoon, I believe it's 3 p.m. EST. If you're just putzing around with nothing to do, come and hang out with us and, watch with us as we check out what Xbox's slate looks like for 2023. Yeah. Been a lot of silence from them.
And hey, if you want a reminder on that, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell, whatever else the other YouTubers say you have to do, so you can get the notification. And when we're live, you'll know.
Subscribe.
Smash it. But let's jump into some games and also TV show. Stretch, you got an early code to Persona 3 Portable. Your content is live on the site. We have a review out and a bunch of guides. So if you're playing through it for the first time or want 100% it, check out those guides.
Stretch. Good luck 100%ing.
Yeah, it'd take a while.
You've got to do some fantastic micromanaging of your time and effort and planning out just life to 100% that in a single run. But yeah, this was the first time that I had fully played through Persona 3 Portable. I had played through it and gotten about 70% of the way through it on the PSP way back in the day. What came out in 2006 or something?
Maybe. Yeah,
I think so. But it's really cool to go back to it. But Persona, I think, is just the perfect example of a franchise that has continued to build on what it does in the right way. Mm-hmm. Playing Persona 5 and playing Persona 4 Golden when it hit Steam last year or the year before, those are much more modern takes. Even playing Persona 4, it was oh, cool. I see where they kind of had a seedling of an idea here. And then it became this in Persona 5. Mm-hmm. Persona 3 feels like a lot of steps back.
I mean, it literally is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much so that, there aren't specific dungeons for any of the social links in the same way that 4 and 5 kind of give you, okay, we're going to focus on this person's story arc and we're going to work through it and we're going to get to the end of it and they're going to be in a better place. Either with new people joining in or just working through stuff. The mega dungeon Tartarus in Persona 3 sucks. It is the definition of bloat in a video game. That I got to the true ending. It was a quick turnaround time on the review, so I was crunching it a bit. Got to the final moments of all of the characters rallying, today's the day that we're gonna get to the top of Tartarus, and we're gonna take down this deity that's trying to destroy the world. I'm like, cool. Up until that point, the last boss that I was able to beat unlocked for me floor 165 of Tartarus, which is every level is a procedurally generated layout, and they just like change some of the wallpaper every like 30 floors or so. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm on to floor 165. Great. How, like, what floor is the top floor? And I did a quick Google search. Oh, 263.
Yeah.
It was like,
it's unnecessary.
Everyone getting together and banding, and this is the moment, and we're gonna go out, we're gonna fight the thing. It's like, okay, now dungeon crawl for another 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. It really is the worst of all worlds, because it's thematically on point, right? Because Tartarus is the labyrinth that's always shifting.
Yeah,
but man,
thematically it works.
It sucks.
As I said in my review, like the social links in Persona 3, I think are some of the best social links. The kind of the deep stories that deal with all kinds of trauma, a little girl whose parents are getting divorced and, lash out at her, an athlete that wants to go the distance but was born with a bum knee, social anxieties, social pressures, different family system trauma. All of these are so interesting and so fantastic. And then every single time that it gets to going through Tartarus, it's like, okay, putting on a podcast or let's have Netflix up on a side screen. Like, I just brain check out.
Yeah. It is definitely rough. It's like, I think Mementos is the perfect evolution, right, of Tartarus, because it's also procedurally generated in Persona 5, but it's not tedious. You get the car, so you can move really fast, and
and you could chop Tartarus down by like 50%, probably 60%, and it would be just as impactful. But just as of right before we recorded, insiders, air quotes, talking about, a Persona 3 full remaster is well in progress, and Persona 6 is well in progress, because there's still no proper way to play Persona 3, because every single version has like different stuff to it.
Yeah, it's like Persona 3 FES, you can like walk around the open world or the overworld, because like portable, it's like point and click almost, right? Like it's FES gives you that ability to move, but you can't control your party members.
Yeah, and in FES you can't control your party member, but FES also has an epilogue scene that's set like a few months after the end of the main game that follows a different character that's meant to be super impactful. I've never played it because I've only played it portable.
Hey, pro tip, don't. If you thought Tartarus was tedious, boy howdy, is the answer even worse. It is.
Oh man.
It is a trip. Yeah. So I have hopes for that remake, if the rumors are true, that they come out with like a definitive version of Persona 3. Like, I think I wrote an opinion about it like months back, like when Royal came out, that if you want to read that, it's kind of dives more into that kind of like, there's no real definitive way to play Persona 3, which is kind of unfortunate. Yeah. Otton, you on our document here said you have a very relevant Naughty Dog game to discuss.
I do.
Is it Uncharted 4?
No.
Oh, no, it's Uncharted 5. Cool.
In a way, yes. In a way, yes. That is what it is. Since we have a Naughty Dog TV show that is out now. I know it's HBO.
Really?
But it's a Naughty Dog show in my eyes. They took all the cutscenes and made a show out of it. The Last of Us.
I thought some random YouTuber did that years ago.
They paid him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was Craig Mazin this whole time.
Craig did it years ago.
Right.
Anyway, no, I finally, after I played the awful game that is Crisis Core, I needed a palate cleanser to make me forget how fucking awful and terrible that game is. And I had it sitting around for a while. I hadn't played it. As I tried out well, I've gotten through it. Uncharted Lost Legacy. Finally. So it is Uncharted 4E, and also a little bit, I think, of a glimpse into what Uncharted 5 could be like. Because I only want to talk about because I know I'm way behind. It came out in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
It was 6 years ago. But we haven't seen Uncharted since then. So, and I think probably whatever their next thing will be is something Uncharted, right?
Well, hey, to be fair, we have seen Uncharted since then. Tom Holland would like a word, and Marky Mark. They would like
Uncharted.
Nolan North was in it as well.
Yeah. But anyway, no, it's an interesting take, I think, on because it does this open world thing with Uncharted for it that I think worked really well. It was pretty basic. It wasn't like it looked pretty, but it was pretty simple game design wise. But the whole idea of Uncharted is like you're exploring shit and finding cool shit, and you being able to guide that kind of just fit it thematically. And I'm not saying we need a bunch more open world stuff, because God, please save us from that. I'm tired. I'm kind of done with it for the most part. But if it's open world stuff that takes you to the cool choreographed spectacle stuff that Uncharted is known for, that's the reward for going out and finding the thing or whatever these things are. Like, sign me the fuck up. Where it gives you a little more agency of it.
As weird as it is to say, Sony with stuff like God of War, or at least like the first God of War was more of it. That's kind of become my personal gold standard for an open world.
Yes. I think if they did an Uncharted that was something like that, where you're moving around to these different areas, it doesn't necessarily need the hub world like God of War, but it's that kind of same vein. I think that would do really well. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, Last of Us 2 had something similar. Like that first day you're in Seattle as Ellie. Like
I guess, a little bit of open worldy kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a huge downtown area where like you could just beeline to the goal, but if you explore, you get like that cool scene where Ellie
so it seems that they're definitely wanting to do more of that kind of stuff. And then Lost Legacy it's so stupid because they didn't do anything innovate. Like there's nothing new that they did. It's just that they did it with Uncharted and it fit, I think. And I think they're definitely trying to do that with whatever their next thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some big open world thing in whatever the next Naughty Dog game is, whether it's Uncharted or whatever the hell.
Crash Bandicoot open world.
hey, don't knock it till you try it.
I mean, we just had a Sonic open world, so who fucking knows? We had a Kirby open world. Like,
I saw Alpha Rad was doing Sonic Frontiers modded, and there was like the giant the giant humanoid robot off in the background doing Fortnite dances.
That does make it better.
I love that. That does, but I never realized how Sonic Frontiers modded is a phrase that strikes fear in my heart because of the rampant possibilities that community could come up with.
Yeah.
Like kissing humans.
Yep. Bring the princess back in.
That's official.
Uncharted Lost Legacy is pretty good. Chloe was pretty good protagonist. I would not be surprised to see it be a one protagonist in the next one, whoever it might be. Maybe it'll be Chloe. I mean, she's got the history.
You finished it, or you just played a lot of it?
I'm almost at the end of it. I'm basically at the end, but I have not completed it. Why does she fucking die?
I don't know. Well, no, like I only played a bit of it toward the end of last year. I only played a bit of it toward the end of last year, and I got to where it starts to open up. I did like one or two of the now that it's open, I can explore this or that. So I'm glad to hear that they kind of continue that open world, vibe throughout. Yeah, it actually delivers on it.
Yeah, I don't think it's like I said, it's not like it's not super engaging open world stuff. It just is open world, and it's done competently enough. It's not a huge game either.
Yeah,
but I think it is something that will marry well with Uncharted, and I mean, really, just the Naughty Dog style of game. Anyway,
because it could be cool to see them like if they had an open world game, and it's one of those kind of like how Breath of the Wild, you could beat it technically, and like you could beeline again and beat them. Like if you're smart enough and can figure out all the clues beforehand, maybe you can go straight to the final treasure or whatever.
I'm definitely curious because we know that they have relatively long dev cycles, and that was the last Uncharted thing, and it was 6 years ago almost. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear something this year or next year about whatever the next thing is.
Maybe. But I mean, to add to the rumor mill, I'm pretty sure like I saw a rumor that Last of Us 3 allegedly.
Yeah, Last of Us 3, and then there was another rumor that it was like their second team or some other team was doing Uncharted. It wasn't the like A team necessarily, but whatever.
Yeah. Rumors abound, right?
Who knows?
All right, well, I think this is the point in the pod where we're going to shift over and talk about the Last of Us TV show on HBO. We're only going to talk about episode 1 because episode 2 hasn't come out yet for us at the time we're recording. So if you haven't seen the episode and you are curious, and if you haven't played the game and you're curious, this is your final warning. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your time. But now let's get into The Last of Us episode 1. Pedro Pascal is Joel.
Yes.
Daddy is a state of mind.
Man, the talking rabbit was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yo, that first episode slapped. That was a great first episode.
Pretty good.
I agree. I think it was pretty good.
I think that it's going to be one of those ones that bridges the gaps to gamers. Like, gamers will really enjoy this. You don't need to be a gamer to enjoy this. You don't need to have, like, you know, lived through the source material to be like, fuck yeah, this is awesome.
Well, what's cool about that too is seeing Neil Druckmann tweet like, "This will be the first time my parents interact with this."
Oh,
and that was like,
oh yeah,
holy shit! I didn't even think about that. Like, for those of us that have parents that don't play games, they may interact with this, and it sparks a discussion, and that's pretty cool. And the fact that it like was as kind of faithful to the source material as it was also really cool to see. Yeah, especially like that one scene in the apartment that was like almost frame to frame.
Yeah. Like I liked how there were scenes that are just straight up lifted. Like the lines are pretty 1-to-1, but the delivery for them isn't the same. Because I think both Pedro Pascal and the actress who plays Ellie, neither of them have played the game. So it's
Bella
not like
Ramsey.
Bella Ramsey, thank you. Like neither of them are referencing like, oh, I've got to mimic Troy Baker exactly. I've got to beat Ashley Johnson exactly, right?
I will say some of like the aggressive intonation and stuff in some of Bella Ramsey's lines were very spot on.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. Not to say that they needed to be the same, but like it immediately drew me into like, yes, this is Ellie. Like that's how Ellie would say that thing.
Yeah, because she's kind of like a shitty teenager a little bit. She's got like that kind of that mean streak, right? Yeah. So I think she's
seen people say that wasn't faithful to the source material too. There were some people that were tweeting like, she's being too much X, Y, or Z, and I'm like,
that's exactly how Ellie was. She was the arrogant teen that was like a little
yeah. They were saying she wasn't like that, and I was like,
yeah, she was.
Did you play the game?
At the start, I mean, by the end, yeah, she's not like that as much to Joel, but like by that point, they're like kind of pseudo father-daughter.
They don't know each other at the start, so
Joel's like, I got to deal with this now. It's kind of like fucking a.
Like, I don't want to deal
with
this
the little green one, and now this little shit.
Yeah. I did notice because I think I remember there was a news story before the show came out that they were not going to use spores or like the whole gas mask thing. How did it hit you guys when they run into, one of the dead, fungused out corpses, but there's no spores or anything?
I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was like terrible.
I feel like there are only a few times, like as a game mechanic, like to create additional haze to make things harder to see, the spores made a lot of sense. Or even like, I guess some of the times that you had to like run away from spores. But I think for the purpose of TV, where like if you don't want the audience to see something, just frame the shot away from the thing. Like the jump scare of the dead clicker against the wall was done really well. I think that the spores make a lot more sense to add as a mechanic for a game, but I would probably be pissed off at the haziness and the questionable quality, especially like, we had the Game of Thrones episodes through HBO, like the Battle of Winterfell. No, that's Winterfell is Skyrim.
Yeah, I'm
The
not a
big
game
battle
developer.
where everything was dark and everyone complained that the compression on the streaming made it unwatchable.
Well,
That
let's
if there
call
were
it.
different
Go for it.
if there were different like hazy tones on the screen, and then you also had to deal with streaming compression from what is clearly a popular series with 4.7 million viewers on the first day, I think that would get in the way of what they were trying to show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like I think it's in the first 2 days now, it's like 10 million views, right? Which is crazy. I think in that first day, that 4.7 million viewers that you said, it's second most for HBO, the streaming service, only behind House of the Dragon, which was like 9.8 or 9 million viewers or something in the first day. But that makes sense because it's like a spinoff to arguably the most popular HBO thing ever, right? But I think back to the spores thing, I think part of it too that I'm okay with is like, I think, yeah, okay, it's not quote unquote faithful to the source material. But man, I don't want to watch the whole second half of this episode with Pedro Pascal in a gas mask. I don't want to deal with that. That sounds kind of boring.
Well, it's the same thing with the Robert stuff where they just killed him off. Like,
yeah,
let's make it quick and easy. Let's not, have this long drawn out thing and continue through the story, because the pacing of the episode was also very good. Like it ended on a good place for a first episode.
Yeah.
I would hate to have a TV show where Pedro Pascal spends the whole time wearing a mask.
Yeah, right. Like, and because I've recently been replaying through The Last of Us, and man, that whole Robert bit is really, it kind of drags, but also like from a game perspective, it makes sense because that's the tutorial. That's where you learn the mechanics and interacts with them. And that's where games and TV differs, right? That you don't need to learn how to watch the show. So Robert's place in the story is kind of like, what, he's the inciting incident to get the ball rolling, but we don't need to spend so much time with him. And I'm glad that what they did is in lieu of that, they kind of spent more time with Sarah, right? Because before, like the show doesn't open with like the outbreak, right? It's like you follow a whole day at school before, and like how Sarah gets the watch and gets it fixed up, but then there's like the eerie, like you notice like the police are on alert and stuff, but all that builds like a really nice tension. And like that opening the scene with the scientists on the talk show,
that was so good.
That was really
smart.
good.
So good. It set the
Very
stakes so well.
Yeah. This was really kind of like, I think based on the length, it was episode 1 and 2, because episode 1's Sarah ends with her dying, and then episode 2 is all the stuff in modern day Last of Us time.
Foster. Yeah.
I think I read a tweet somewhere that it was like they had that as the first episode, and then it might have been Druckmann, might have been someone else higher up who said like, well, no, we need to make it twice as long because people are not going to get to the end of that and then come back next week for the actual buy-in.
Yeah, because I feel like if it ended on the shot with Joel and Sarah, like when Sarah dies, I mean, it's a very powerful moment, but it's also like if it ended there, I don't know, I'd feel like it.
I feel like a lot of people would bounced off.
Well, I think it feels like a conclusion.
Yeah.
And did anyone else wish that Pedro Pascal was wrapping them up in his big muscular arms?
Are you saying
Just
you wish you were dying?
No, what? No,
He is a
you take it that way.
Yeah, we all do kind of want to die, low key. Like, wouldn't be the worst thing if I died.
Fair.
But some of my
This
favorite bits
podcast
of
would
it
be less depressing.
Some of my favorite bits of it were the like video gamey bits of it, because I do think there was some influence from the gamey stuff. Like I think some of my favorite part was in the truck, the whole shots from within the truck. I was like, this is straight out of a fucking video game, like but it was such a tense thing, and the way they move back and the fucking plane crashing and all the people surrounding it was so chaotic. It was such a well done shot that it felt very video game, very Naughty Dog video game too, of like in a car with the way they do it.
That is lifted directly from the game. You can go on YouTube and find those comparisons.
And it was worked really well. So I'm saying, do it again.
And what I like about it too is it lifts because that's in the game, that's very inspired by like cinematography, movies and TV, right? So I like that it's working really well in the TV show.
Yeah.
And I also like that it's not picking up the video gamey parts of like it doesn't feel like fucking Scott Pilgrim. You know what I mean? Where it's like everything's a video game reference. Like there's a P bar. Like, you know, I don't want any of that shit. Like I'm glad that they're leaving behind the kind of like the trappings of video game logic in a way, right? And it's just like this is just a post-apocalyptic TV show, right? There's no like I'm gonna combine
in this
like they're not combining bandages with alcohol, right? To like make first aid kits together. Right?
Wait till they find a crafting bench, buddy.
We'll see.
It was, I mean, Last of Us is probably one of the most perfect
cinematic
series that can lend itself to video as well. I mean, like a lot of what The Last of Us did was very cinematic to begin with. And so even the story, everything seems like it just translates so naturally to the screen, like as opposed to, you know, Uncharted was a little weird. I think the way they did it, I liked it, but I feel like this was a really faithful adaptation that just moved over so smoothly.
I think maybe one of my favorite changes they did from the game to the show is it's like I think one of the last scenes where Joel beats the shit out of that dude, like literally beats the man to death, right? And it's like it's something very similar. Yeah, something similar happens in the game where that's the scene where, you know, Joel and Tess find out that Ellie's infected, but et cetera, right? But I like that they brought the flashback of the scene when that soldier kills his daughter in his arms and shoots him, right? Because like that brings this connection that like I didn't think about the first time I was watching or I played the game, right? But the show kind of bridges that gap and kind of makes that scene a lot more powerful. And it's played out a little bit differently too, but I thought it was a really nice addition to the original story.
They definitely like in the framing of everything, because like there's definitely some like there was enough like difference in the two scenes in the game that I think I as well did not put it together. But having like the exact same framing, exact same lighting, it was perfection. It was so great. I can't wait for Sunday.
Yeah. And it really paints Joel as this like just this beaten down, just like
Sad
broken
dad.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels more so in the show with how Pedro's portraying it and the change of that scene and kind of stuff where like I don't know, I guess I didn't get as much of a vibe of that with Joel in the game at first.
Yeah.
Like you learn it over time and you understand it, but like it's very, very apparent already in the show.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if part of it too is like when you're playing the game, right? There's just a little bit of like video game protagonist syndrome where it's like, of course Joel's going to kill these guys because like that's what makes it fun. As opposed to
when you have that separation, it's easier to be a little more have a little more perspective on a character when you're not embodying the character.
Yeah.
Which is one of the interesting things that a lot of people whine about, like, why are they making this when it's basically a movie anyway in the game? And I mean, I don't think it's not a, I don't want to say it's a fair comparison. It's a worthy discussion to have. Like it's the most movie-like games that are out there almost, but it's because that separation is a whole new perspective on the story. Yeah. This is a new interpretation of the story. I mean, even if it's, you know, plot by plot, point by point, the same plot or whatever, you're still going to experience it very differently.
Like I'm going to be very curious to see like if it does follow point by point and it ends on that same way that the game ends, right? Where Joel lies to Ellie and she's like, okay. And you see in her eyes, right? Like she knows it's not, like she knows something's up. I wonder if they end it that same way, if the journey they take to get there is going to feel different than the game does, you know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Christian is building a Last of Us meter. So
it's true.
That's right.
Found that amusing.
Did he called it the Tlomometer? TLOUmometer?
Something like that.
Meter or something. Yeah.
It will definitely like assuming they get to part 2. It's if they make the show, I'm assuming it will based on how popular it already is. What they do with that story there, because it'll be weird.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's not going to be all from Ellie and then all from Abby's perspective.
I mean, it's pretty common in TV shows and stuff to like split the focus and have an A plot and a B plot.
Oh yeah.
And it just might be that sometimes you get the Ellie plot and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what it'll be.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting narrative decision game wise. I wonder what discussion will happen for the TV show.
Honestly, if they do it with like A B story and tell their stories in parallel to meet, I will think that will be a better narrative than how they posed it in the actual game.
I would agree.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, apparently it's a very lukewarm take.
No. I mean, like, I think honestly, I could totally imagine, like let's say season one is the first game, right? And it ends, like the last episode is Joel going on the rampage and saving Ellie and the lie and all that. Cut to credits. We wait 2 years. Season 2 starts, and it starts with just Abby. And I bet we get like a longer scene of like, you remember that scene of like the dad saving the zebra? We're probably gonna get a longer version of that. Yep. And then it's like, then the dad being like, okay, I'm gonna go to work today. Bye, honey. I'll see you later. And then you find out he died at work. Why did he die? And that whole, like, I bet we don't even see Ellie for the whole first episode. You know what I mean? Like that, I could totally believe that.
I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Doing the A/B going back and forth, like, I mean, Last of Us 2 has been talked to death, but I think part of its problem was like you get through Ellie's story to the moment where they eventually meet up later, and there's so much time in between that. You're like, oh yeah, like the emotional weight behind what was happening is kind of forgotten because you're 10 hours removed.
Well, it's either forgotten or you're just like, I'm so like, I even if I like Abby, I just want to get back to that, like just back there.
Exactly.
It's like you get narratively taken out at the knees at that midway point in the game. It's like, oh fuck, come on.
Oh yeah.
Excellent.
I remember seeing a lot of people complaining about the one scene with Sarah where she's picking the movie. And it's very like horror trope where she's like thumbing through the movies and behind her the old lady's like starting to turn.
Yeah.
I like that scene. I don't know.
I kind of liked that.
That was great.
Like,
I mean,
it added this deep suspense. Like even knowing what we know about the game, it was still like it was very like.
It was. I know that Rob touched on it. There was a lot of like you need to be watching in the background to see stuff is getting worse. Talking about like the police cars and stuff when she first walks into the pawn shop, it's like cop car goes by, ambulance goes by, SWAT car goes by, and like they don't make a sound, they don't have their lights on, nothing. When I was watching it with my wife, she didn't even see that happening. She was watching like how Ellie was fiddling with Joel, not Ellie, sorry, how Sarah was fiddling with Joel's watch. It was just such a good suspenseful build-up.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I do understand where people are coming from with the scene with the old lady in the background, because that is very like horror tropey, right? It's like it's very original. But it worked for me. I don't think it was like
tropes for a reason.
Yeah, but even then, it's like it worked. It's fine, like it's not so bad where I'm like, this is unwatchable.
It's not awful. I think it would have been better if they just kept the dog being unwary to let people figure that out. Like, what the dog has got a problem with her. What's the deal?
Yeah.
I like the Sarah portion a lot and how they kind of changed it. Like, as my wife played the game and she was like, well, didn't something different happen when he came back? And I was like, yeah, I think he basically, if I remember right, and it's been a long time, he basically just like busted through the back door as like the neighbor just tried to bite me or whatever.
There was a neighbor that bursts through the giant floor to ceiling windows, and then Joel comes in and shoots the neighbor.
Yeah. Okay, one question I want to ask you guys. Final question here before we wrap up. So, we approach games and TV shows differently. So one of the tricks that The Last of Us has to do to get you like in, right, at the beginning, is to not only believe that Joel and Sarah love each other, but that they're both very likable and that you're already rooting for them, right? The game does it in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most, right? And then she dies at like 15 minutes in. Whereas in the TV show, like I'm pretty sure it's about 30 minutes until the whole death scene. So it's like
probably longer than that.
I think it's about
40,
45, 40
Yeah.
something.
30, 45.
Right. So they spend a long time, much longer time in a TV show building up primarily Sarah, but you see more of the Sarah Joel dynamic. Like they have dinner in the morning with Tommy and all that, right? So do you feel like if the TV show cut it all down to be about the same length as the game, would it have still worked? And if so, if not, why not? Or if so, why?
I think there could have been some stuff that they could have selectively edited out. Like, you know, we know about the importance of the watch and the watch getting repaired because she like went into the city. And they also kind of like seeded the idea of, well, maybe she was infected anyway because she went to the city. But stuff like that, you probably could have just cut to the evening and her giving the present and saying, I got your watch fixed. But I like the world building that occurred during that, I think was a little bit more invaluable. You know, based on Joel's want to work a double even on his birthday to make sure that, you know, food is on the table, yada yada, and how you get from the very first moments, you immediately get this dynamic of like a dad trying to hold his shit together. Sarah's definitely way older, like in her maturity than she should be for her age because of what she's had to go through. I think that they set up 90% of what I feel that dynamic is at that meal. And then the following 10% is probably like them watching movies and her falling asleep on his lap.
Yeah. I think what's more important about it isn't necessarily making the moment she dies more impactful. I mean, a parent having their child die in their arms is always going to be powerful, particularly if a performance like they performed, it was very well done.
Yes.
Like you don't need a lot of setup for an audience to understand like this is very important, a moment. But I think what a lot of the showing more of their relationship is going to do is that little bit we saw of the flashback of Sarah dying and then Ellie with Joel. There's gonna be a little more of that where he's gonna see a little bit more of Sarah in Ellie, and we as an audience are gonna be like, oh, that is a little bit like her personality wise, where we saw that in this scene, or like her at school, or how she's always telling her dad like she's smart, she knows this stuff, like she's too smart for dad, and that kind of things like that. I think that's where it's gonna crop up more often, is that it's gonna make us understand Joel and Ellie's relationship a lot more.
Yeah. I could see that, because I think part of where I was like trying to figure out how I was standing on this was like games generally, and we say this a lot on the pod, they don't have the best stories, right?
No.
Like compared to TV shows and movies and books, right? They're usually not the best. Like The Last of Us is an exception, not the rule.
And even then, I mean, Last of Us is good. It's not everybody's like it's this amazing. It's just a good story. It's not the best thing ever,
right? It's the best thing ever in games, right? Like one of right. I mean, arguable, but it is one of the higher up there, right? Like in terms of game stories, right? It's pretty up there. And I was just trying to think, like, okay, so I guess is the TV show so far we think it's executed well, but you know, is it executed well compared to the game, or is that a hard comparison to make? You know, it's kind of hard to say because they're both like such different medium.
And I think it took the strengths of the game. I feel like it made them a little better in terms of like taking this short 5-10 minute period of a game, expanded it into 45 minutes and making it feel a lot more meaningful. I mean, like in the game, yes, it was like impactful, it was meaningful, but I don't think it was as impactful as it has been in the show, because you get more time with Sarah, you get more time with Joel. To understand before this like incredibly tragic thing happens.
I like the show version of this better, because I think it is too quick in the game, but I understandably why, like they weren't going to linger on that forever. This is the beginning of their game. It's kind of, you know, it's got to have some kind of action-y kind of something going on where the players got to be involved. We're not just going to watch an hour-long cutscene unless Kojima made it. We're not going to sit there and watch this hour-long cutscene to start it.
Because it still has to be a game.
That's just the limitation of games, is you cannot dwell on a cutscene for too long typically, or players will immediately disengage.
And
It's
obviously,
easy,
not at the start.
easy to immediately
Yeah.
pick up your phone mid cutscene.
or get
because you're
distracted by
bored.
looking at something in the world. That's one of the big benefits, is that they get to frame every shot. They get to guide everybody's attention to whatever they want, whenever they want. They don't have to also have this interactive world or something for you to look at everywhere, like for players to keep them engaged. They get to tell it very pointedly, but it also lets them expand out little moments a little bit more, or build on things that were maybe blips, or maybe just blips to some players because they blew past it or whatever.
Right.
So they definitely, there's a lot of benefits that go the way of telling a story on a TV show or movie versus a game, in terms of being able to convey exactly what you want to convey.
Right.
But you get a lot more of the fireflies out of this too. So, you know, in the game, it's like you run into her, I need you to take this girl. Whereas this, like, you're getting a little bit more of her time with the fireflies, and the impact of blanking on her name, getting shot.
Marlene.
Marlene, getting shot, and the fact that she can't be the one to take her. I feel like it just lends a lot more weight to that part of the story.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of those where it's games, I think they don't have to do as much legwork there, because as a game, we just accept I'm going to be given a task. Yeah. And in the show, Joel's got to be given a real reason of like, fuck that. I'm not, like, that was his initial reaction. Like, fucking no, I'm not doing that. Are you insane? Be given a good reason to do it. And I think they did that very well.
Yeah.
It's kind of, they've got to take everything that we take for granted in a video game and be like, here's the human reason. Here's what will make you watch it and go, why the fuck did he do that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because in a game you can fill in the blanks yourself, because you're the one that did the action.
Well, in the game, you don't even need to fill in the blanks, because you just want to do things. And the game, when the game tells you do thing, you're like,
next thing.
Yeah.
I want to see the next thing.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think that's a wrap on this episode of the TechRaptor podcast. We hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave us a rating on whatever platform you're listening on. Leave us a comment down below, either on our site, on YouTube, or whatever. Let us know, what did you think of the first episode of The Last of Us? Did it live up to your hopes and dreams? Are you dissatisfied? Is it not accurate to the source material? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. We will be back next Monday with another episode of the TechRaptor podcast, and we will see you then. Goodbye.